Well, we're joined today at the Boulevard Tours and Rec Center by Gus from Alt J. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's extremely nice to be here. It's lovely.
Yeah, it is such a really nice place. I encourage everybody to check it out if they haven't already. Congratulations on the Dream, first album in 5 years.
Yeah. Thank you very much. No, it's really nice to have a new record out. You know, we took some time off after the last album, and then COVID kind of like slowed things down in the studio this time. But I think, you know, hopefully people feel the wait's been worth it, and we certainly feel that it has.
And of course, tonight you're playing with Portugal the Man, Cherry Glazer out at Cable Dahmer Arena, and we were talking about it before. The reviews on this tour have just been spectacular.
They have been very kind. Yeah, it's lovely. I mean, you know, I think it's nice to play with such a strong bill of artists, and we've kind of really taken things to the next level with our visual production and lights as well. So yeah, it's lovely to see the good reviews, and we've had a great time on this tour.
You know, you mentioned you mentioned COVID, and you're being really careful on tour.
Yeah.
And there's really good reason for that. Your drummer Tom has been the recipient of a kidney donation, and is on, you know, immunosuppressant drugs. So really need to be careful.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, it's very real for us in the band that, you know, the risk that COVID could pose to us. But we've just been super happy that we've been able to keep the tour going this whole time. We've not cancelled any shows. Everyone's been okay. So, you know, it's a testament to all of our crew's kind of commitment to keeping Tom safe. And you know, we're very grateful to everybody at the venues and who's been you know, making the extra effort to keep the show on the road.
You know, we were visiting 9 years ago about the first record.
Yeah.
You have, you know, when you have success like Alt J had, everybody wants to keep you working. Everybody wants the hamster to keep running and the wheel to keep turning. It had been 3 albums and then tours immediately following that. So 2019, you actually decided to step away as a band and take a breath.
We did, yeah. I mean, I think that was it. I think we were quite burnt out after album 3, just 3 albums back to back, all with, you know, tours, really not very much time at home at all. And I think we just all felt like we needed a break. And actually to kind of get to know each other again in that year as people as well, not just like bandmates and workmates and stuff. So it was nice to have that year to spend time at home in London, see friends and family, and as I said, see each other as well as friends. And then by the time 2020 rolled around, we were kind of like ready to get back in the studio, had lots of ideas and excited to make a new album. And we did manage to do that despite world events.
So I know that you had some time to step away and relax, but were you worried when Joe took up boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Was I worried? I think not too worried. I mean, he did. It was quite funny, actually. I'm sure he won't mind me telling this story, that he had to. He took up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which involves a lot of rolling around on the floor, and he very quickly started getting what's called a cauliflower ear, which is like a rugby player thing, where your ear kind of fills up with sort of fluid and sort of gets misshapen, and he realised he was going to have to stop because he wouldn't be able to wear in-ear monitors anymore, which we use on stage. So when we got our ears made this time, he had to have new moulds made to fit with his very unnoticeable but slight cauliflower ear, thanks to his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
You know, as a band, we all know that Alt J, like, your influences are insanely broad, but you started playing around with Irish Fiddle.
I did pick up the Irish Fiddle in 2019. I think I've spent quite a lot of time in Dublin, and also I love going to sort of pub sessions in London as well, and I've always been obsessed with just like watching the fiddle players and thinking they're like the best musicians I can kind of imagine, really. So I found a teacher in London, and I got quite far with it, really. COVID kind of put paid to the lessons, unfortunately, and I was going to bring it on tour with me this time, but I had so much other stuff to carry that I didn't make it out here. But I've really enjoyed learning it, and I'm looking forward to picking it up again when I'm back home. And
you've also played around some with condiments.
Yes, I have. And invented a revolutionary condiment based on mustard called Gustard, and I'm hoping to bring it to market very soon.
I think maybe the biggest project that you took on was You Are a Father.
This is also true, yes. My 6-month-old son, Albin, is actually out on tour with us right now. I've got my wife and my son with me, which is lovely. he's, been traveling around America for the last month, and he loves it. It's been really fun for him just to be in different places all the time, and all the crew are kind of like, his uncles and aunts, and he's, being passed around them like a baby at kind of like a sort of family dinner party every night. Really, it's very sweet, and it's been amazing to kind of share this experience with him. To not to just leave him at home and be like, see you in 2 months. So it's been good.
All Jay has somewhat famously used some pretty dark material for inspiration at times. And Here Comes You and Me, which is like this happy little song. Was it inspired by Joe attending an Australian music festival?
That's absolutely right, yeah. It was on New Year's Day 2020 when he was at a festival in Melbourne, and he was sending me lots of videos. He was having a good time, and and it was kind of funny because then we then got in the studio like a few weeks later when he was back from Australia, found this jam we'd done on tour that was kind of like had this chorus, it's just you and me now, and it was it was practically written really apart from the verses, and we were putting the lyrics together for it based on this day at the festival. But it was interesting because I think that day, already by that time, by the time we were in the studio, coronavirus was kind of like looming up in the news. I'm sure we all remember what it was like, that, like one day it was this sort of story on page, 12, then it was on page 4, and then suddenly it was front page, and hasn't really left the front page since. And it was that day at the festival, I think, seemed to take on a kind of new meaning, because it was almost like the last day of innocence, January the 1st, 2020, that from early in that year onwards, the world has not been the same since. And, here we are with our masks and everything. And so I think that song has a poignancy to it. It's about a good day at a festival getting mashed, but it's also about, sort of like the last days of this kind of like pre-COVID times, and how none of us really took it for granted. Well, no, sorry, we all took it for granted. None of us appreciated what it meant to be in a festival with thousands of other people and no social distancing and no worries, basically.
Our guest today on the bridge is Gus from Alt J, the new album, The Dream. And, I don't think I actually have said this yet, but it's really a spectacular record.
Thank you.
You have a lot to be proud of on this one.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're super proud of it, actually. I think even in the studio, I think we felt like it was going to be a special album. And, on our third album, which we're still very proud of, but we rushed it a lot. We committed ourselves to a deadline that was unrealistic, and it was not a pleasant recording experience. I think this time around, we had our own studio in London where we wrote and recorded. It was in a nice part of town with a good sandwich shop nearby, a good pub nearby, and we were just very happy the whole time. And I think it comes across in the album, hopefully.
You actually rented a house and converted it into the studio.
We did. Yeah, it's kind of like a cool sort of, quite an architecture design sort of modern house, and we kind of furnished it with lots of lovely rugs and lamps. That we did a band trip to IKEA and spent like £1,000 on rugs and lamps, which is a lot of rugs and lamps in IKEA, let me tell you. And we also put up lots of tour posters we collected over the last 10 years from our gigs, mainly in America. Actually, we're lucky enough that often artists, like local artists, design a poster for that night's show, and I've always collected them and just kept them in tubes in my attic, and I finally had something I could do with them. So it was like a sort of Alt J museum in the studio. It was nice.
So are you keeping the house?
Sadly not. I think that we've decided to, for now, give it up, and we'll find a new place next time. I think it was just like, not going to get used for the next couple of years, and I think it was just, it's just kind of boring, really. But it was just, it was financially not really worth keeping for the moment. But it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all.
So when you're in a normal studio, there's a meter running.
Yes.
And it's just like the dollar signs are piling up.
For sure.
You had 18 months off and on that you were working on this record.
Yeah.
It was a luxury.
Big time. Yeah, it was really nice not to have that, exactly like you said, that stressful feeling of the meter running. We worked like quite short, civilized days. We're talking 10 till 4 with a decent lunch break, 4 days a week, kind of like just try to, and our producer also has kids as well. So it was nice for us all to be able to have that kind of like work-life balance that not many people are lucky enough to have.
A little bit of writing, then a little bit of recording, then a little bit of writing, then a little bit of
Exactly,
recording.
kind of back and forth. We'd do like 3 weeks writing, and then like whatever songs we'd wrote in that time, we'd get Charlie, our producer, come in, record them, then go back to writing. So we never got into that kind of like long rut of just recording 12 songs in a row for like 3 months and just feeling like you're climbing the walls and you hate all your bandmates.
So just to sort of recap this, we have actually found a human being that found work-life balance, at least briefly.
Yeah, I had it all.
And now we're on tour and it's gone, right?
yeah. The on tour work-life balance is funny because it's as a band member, it's so much waiting around, but you're never really free to fully have your time to yourself. You're sort of as if for example today it's difficult because we're playing out in Independence, which is a bit of a long way from Kansas City, to kind of just come in and hang out. So I'm actually really pleased to be here right now. I'm hoping after this to go and do a bit of wandering around and buy some sort of like souvenirs for my friends or something. I don't know, stuff I like to do on tour. But yeah, it's as I say, being in a band is mainly sitting around in the dressing room and waiting for sound check or the gig. But certainly it's still an amazing job, and I'm still very lucky to do it.
There's so much packed into the Dream, and so many different types of music. There are elements of opera, barbershop, post-punk, krautrock, shoegaze, house music, and yet it all somehow sounds like alt-J. I think if I had to pick one of those to be like, what? It might be the barbershop stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So tell us about the King's Barbers.
Oh, you've done your research. So when I was at school, when I was at high school, I was in a barbershop group. We were called the King's Barbers because my school was called the King's School. We did 2 tours of Thailand in the early to mid-noughties, which was pretty amazing. Somebody asked me if barbershop was big in Thailand, and I said, well, it is now. So thanks to us. And it was, I think it's just nice because I think in alt-J, it's nice that nothing we have in our musical backgrounds or interests is really off limits, and I think that shows on this album. It's something that Joe always knew that I'd done, and we were writing this song, and he was like, why don't you make this kind of barbershop intro and write the score for it? And I got 2 of my friends from back in the day from the King's Barbers to come and sing on the album, and that was really nice as well. So as I say, nothing's off limits with us really.
Joe is the one who wanted to bring in the opera.
Yeah.
Now, did he have to work the rest of the band to make that happen?
He did. I was pretty skeptical. When I hear opera in rock music, I think like sort of Freddie Mercury, Barcelona, which is not my favorite kind of song. But actually, it was one of those things where so often with Joe, you have to just go with him and follow his hunches because they almost always turn out to be right.
So I want to talk about Hard Drive Gold.
Yeah.
This is a song, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's always good to tell an artist about their own work,
Absolutely.
right? Nothing could go wrong there. But the basic idea is a teenager who becomes an almost instant millionaire with crypto.
Yeah.
But it was inspired, at least a little bit, by Tom following that Reddit thread and getting some GameStop.
Oh yeah, the GameStop
gold.
thing. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know too much about that really. I'm kind of old-fashioned when it comes to, I don't really follow kind of Reddit or like things like that. I don't really understand it that much. But certainly crypto seemed to be in the news a lot, and I think it just seemed like it was one of those things where it was a song that was written very quickly, and I think it was just like, it was fun just to write about something. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, it's a bit of a kind of like, we don't really come down on one side or the other in the song. I think it's just, we're just kind of having fun with it really, yeah.
Our guest today on the bridge is Gus from alt-J, the new album, The Dream. They are, of course, playing tonight at Cable Dahmer Arena with Portugal the Man and Cherry Glazer. You actually played bass on some of the tracks on Dream.
Correct. Yeah, I played bass on 4 of them, I think. It was just something I picked up in the studio, really. We've never really had a full-time bassist in the band. We used to have a member called Will Sainsbury who left after the first album, who played the bass on 2 or 3 songs, I would say. He used to play more bass, and then he started playing more guitar, but once he left, we just didn't really use much bass guitar on songs. And then actually just this time in the studio, I was just trying it out really. I think maybe partly inspired by having played the violin. I was kind of like, felt more comfortable with a 4-stringed instrument than before, and I just really enjoyed it. And I think it's fun on stage to have a new thing to do. You really feel like you're actually, being a keyboardist, you really feel like you're properly in a band when you play the bass, I would say. That's when I feel like I'm fully a band guy, is when I have the bass on.
Well, I think you're stuck now because Joe bought you a custom Hofner.
He did very generously bought me a lovely bass. So I have to keep at it, exactly.
You know, I have to say I know Joe's not here, but I think that we really should mention Joe's contribution in terms of some of the writing that he's done and some of the growth that he's shown.
Absolutely.
He's got a track called "Get Better" on the new album that it made the band cry.
It did. Yeah. It's a beautiful song. It's on the middle of the album. The end of side one, if you want to be old-fashioned, and it's kind of written during the pandemic. It's about a man who's sort of like losing his partner to an unspecified illness, but it sort of makes reference to things that were on our mind a lot in the pandemic, frontline workers and so on. And I think that, I agree. I think it's a real step forward in Joe's songwriting, and certainly had a very powerful effect on me when I first heard it. And I think we really tried to kind of channel that energy in when we were recording Joe's vocals and really pushing him to get, kind of emotional in the vocal booth, which he'd never done before. But I think it really comes across well on the track.
So what is the songwriting process? I'm sure it varies song to song for Old Jay.
Yeah, it does vary song to song. I mean, a lot of it really does start with Joe, and he's a very committed kind of guitarist in his spare time, and spends most of his free time playing guitar really, and coming up with stuff which he then brings to me or the band, and we work on together. But then a lot of the time too, it's stuff that we've maybe jammed on tour, like You and Me, as I say, was more or less written spontaneously by the three of us just in a sound check somewhere, which luckily one of our crew, I think it was Jack over here, recorded on his phone and sent us a recording of it, and we were like, wow, this is amazing, I forgot we did this. So you never really know, but certainly it's been amazing as Joe's partner to see him grow so much as a songwriter on this album, and I'm very grateful to be alongside him.
The album is just loaded with great, super interesting, cool music. Cool. Congratulations on the dream.
Thank you very much.
Our guest today, Gus from Alt J. Thanks again to the Boulevard Tours and Rec Center, and good luck tonight on the show. It's going to be a lot of fun to see you guys play these things live.
Thank you. I mean, I can't wait to play here, and Kansas City and the area has always been a really important city for us. We made a film about it back in, I think, 2013, about the kind of amazing kind of fan base we had here. So we're super excited to play tonight, and thanks for having me.